Hello you guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla. If you are not familiar with me or if you are new here, welcome. I'm a certified hypnotist, I'm a certified life coach, and I talk all about the law of assumption on TikTok. So if you are interested in following me for more content, I mainly post there, but I'm getting better and I am implementing posting more on YouTube as well and posting longer videos on here. So what I wanted to talk about today, really quick before I get into it actually, my course and my SP ebook are down below in the description if you are interested in that. I think I'm going to be doing a sale, a 50% off sale for the end of the year. So it's probably going to be the cheapest I think it will ever be the end of the last few weeks of the year if you're interested in that. But what I wanted to come on and talk to you guys about today was my biggest epiphany when it came to manifesting a specific person. And this came up because I was just on a podcast. I just did an interview with her this morning, and she asked me, what is the biggest epiphany you had when it came down to like manifestation in general, about yourself, like doing the inner work, like what was it? And I had to say the biggest epiphany I had was understanding how very literal and how very crystal clear that reflection is in other people. And it's funny because it's just funny to think that I ever thought a different way or I wasn't aware of it, because it can be very easy to not see that reflection and not understand how it's working. But once you get it, like you can't unsee it, you can't unlearn it. It's like when things pop up, you're like, gosh, I was thinking that, like it's crazy. And so what do I mean by the reflection in other people? Well, Neville Goddard talks a lot about everyone is you pushed out. And that means because, we're all one consciousness and you're the thinker of your reality, people will reflect your assumptions about yourself, about them, about the world in general, back to you. Okay, even your assumptions about manifestation get reflected back to you, which is crazy, right? It's like even if you assume, it's the paradox of manifestation, like even if you assume that manifestation doesn't work for you, you will experience it not working for you because everything just is. And then we're saying this is this way or this is this way. And then that's what we experience. So when it comes to other people specifically, I've noticed that like they'll play out stories you have of them based on two things. And I always say it's based on your self-concept, so who you believe you are, and also your story of them. So who do you believe they are? And I've seen this happen time and time again, and it's just crazy, wild. Like it blows my mind because I've recreated people and they have done 180s. I'm not kidding, overnight in 1 second. Just it's like insane actually. And when you get it, and so I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have is like, well, I didn't very literally specifically think of them doing that little thing. And what I always say is like they're proving general beliefs about yourself and general assumptions you have of them and of you true. So you might say that person has no boundaries. Maybe you didn't think of them doing that specific thing that where they crossed a boundary or they were like, annoying or something like that. But like that would be them playing that role of somebody who doesn't have boundaries, right? Or doesn't respect your boundaries, right? So that's what you kind of want to look at. And the reason that I came to this conclusion and I saw this was because when I was manifesting Mike, I told you guys before, I was very self-conscious about the fact that I had kids initially. And I was like, there's a misconception and we're programmed to think that you're less than or like not like wanted or something, like if you're a single parent. And so, or like less valuable or something. And I bought into that at the time. And so I remember thinking like, oh, is he going to want to date me because I have kids? I don't know. Maybe he is. And I would go back and forth and I'm like, maybe he isn't. Like, I'd be like, no, he's okay with it. And I'd be like, what if he's not okay with it? Like, and I would go back and forth every day. And finally, after a few months, one day I was like, oh, he loves that I have kids, whatever. I don't know. I don't have to know how that's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to be proven true, but I'm just going to decide he loves that I have kids. So on our first date, I remember I asked him, I was like, can you be really honest with me about something? And he's like, sure. And I said, how do you feel about the fact that I have kids? And he said, well, I went back and forth in my head about it. I'm like, am I ready to date somebody who has kids? Am I, maybe I'm not, maybe I am. And then one day I just decided, I love that you have kids and I love that you're a single parent because it just shows how strong and resilient you are. And like, it's amazing that you were able to do this on your own. And I was just like, and it was funny because it was our first date. So like, I couldn't say anything. He didn't know I manifested him at the time. But I remember, outwardly, I was just like, oh my God, that's so sweet. How nice. Okay, that makes me feel better. And internally, I was like, oh my God, I just understood the reflection fully. Like I was like freaking out. And it just showed me how literal your assumptions are. And I've had this happen where I was like saying an affirmation for somebody one night. And I was like, oh, they can't wait for this to happen. They're like so excited. They're thinking about this right now, right? The next day, this person calls me and they're like, oh my God, this is so funny. We're talking about this because I was just thinking last night, blank, and it was what I was assuming they were thinking about. And so it's funny when you realize that, because you realize like when you're assuming something and you're assuming somebody's thinking something, they are. So I would even encourage you right now to collectively, all of us, just like think of somebody who you want to think of you right now and just assume right now they're thinking this about me. They're thinking they love me. They're thinking they can't wait to see me. Whatever it is you want to assume them to be thinking about you, right? Whatever you want them to think about you, assume right now that's what they're thinking. And it's crazy because they're you pushed out, that thought pops in their head. At least that's what I've seen from my experience. And it's just so crazy how literal it is. And I also want to encourage you to look at and be very honest with yourself about what assumptions you have. And sometimes they're very subtle. Like when I was manifesting money, for example, I manifested, like I had a belief I wasn't able to make money. I wasn't worthy of making money. And I changed that belief about myself. But then I realized I still had a story that I had to work really hard for money. So I wanted to change to more of like a passive income type of thing where I could still be making money and I still wanted to be helping a lot of people, but in a way that wasn't draining to me or exhausting to me or wasn't giving too much of myself away, right? And so when I started looking at my beliefs surrounding money, I realized like I had assumptions that I was somebody who couldn't handle like large amounts of money like I was wanting to manifest. I was somebody who was scared of money because I was like, I don't know what to do with it. Like I wasn't well versed or educated in money is what assumption I had about myself. So sometimes they're very like subtle like that. So I really encourage you to look at what assumptions you have about yourself and about the world around you, because they very literally play out with other people, with money, like I said, with body. Like for me, when I was manifesting weight loss, I remember the first time, I really had this, even actually the second time too, before I like visualized what I had, my goal I wanted to be, and before my plan fell into my lap and everything that I talk about on TikTok a lot. Even then I had this like belief that was like the thinnest I could be or the smallest I could be was like the weight I was at. And Mike was actually the one like, why do you keep assuming that? And I didn't even realize I was assuming it until he said that. And I was like, he's right. Like I have this assumption I'm big boned or I'm muscular and I can't be smaller than this. And I got down to a size that like, I never thought I would ever be in my life. Like I was just like, this is crazy. Like I never thought I would be a size 2 in my life. So it's funny, like we realize really at the end of the day, we're the only ones limiting ourselves. And like at any point we can change these assumptions. It's just like recognizing them, understanding what they are, and then being able to like work around your mind enough or get your mind comfortable enough with those assumptions to have them solidify and be true, right? So I want you to stop and I want you to think today, what assumptions do I really have about myself and about the world around me? Especially if you're manifesting something specific, really look at like, what assumptions do I have about that person or that money or myself or that body or the world, right? Or about manifestation in general. And what assumptions would I have to have instead in order to have those things? And really start getting your mind comfortable with that idea. Sometimes it can take a little bit of time, not always, to get your mind comfortable with thinking a new way. But once you do, you're like, oh, that's so weird. I don't even know how I ever thought differently than this, right? So it's crazy how you'll see how very literal that reflection is, and how in everything, with specific person, but with everything. And yeah, I just want to remind you of that today. Like the reflection is very literal. It's funny when you realize it and when you get it and you're like, that's so funny. Like the only reason that's there is because of my assumption. And it's just funny when it all clicks, it really does click. And it's like, you can't unlearn it once you learn it. And so I encourage you guys today to sit down and look at what assumptions you have about yourself, about the world around you, and start changing them into preferential ones, into ones that are going to benefit you and get you what you want. Because the same way the old assumptions had to prove themselves true to you in your 3D and your circumstances, the new ones also will have to prove themselves true to you with your assumptions and with your circumstances. So I hope that you guys have an amazing day. Again, I'm going to be doing 50% off my course if you're interested in that, and I will see you very soon.